Welcome everyone to another new week of the CFO Swinger Watch. If you guys don't know what this video is about, it's a quick technical analysis video on all the names for this week. All right, so let's take a look at the overall market. So last week I did tell you guys, and I did warn you that there will be a lot of volatility as we're heading back down to this daily 50 SMA line. And last week we did indeed see that as we continue to, well, as the bulls start to continue to fight to stay above the 50 SMA, and then the bears were continuing to push the price lower to stay below the 50 SMA. Now on Friday, we did have some interesting action as you saw increased amount of volume coming in compared to the previous days of last week, but we actually stayed above and closed above the daily 50 SMA. Now, I don't know if we were starting to pivot at the end of the day here on Friday, but we're pretty close to this ascending support trend line that we've been tracking for a couple months now. And on the last dip that we had in mid-September, we decided to go underneath this ascending support trend line, but this dip that we had last week can be a little bit different. The fact that we may never even touch this ascending support trend line and we can just continue to bounce and stay above the daily 50 SMA. Now, like I said, it's 50-50 still so far as you can continue to head lower this week and maybe, just maybe, have that break to the downside since we are still pretty much looking at a macro ascending channel here, which is pretty much very bearish. So on the long term, I'm being very cautious here. As you already know, the buy the dip strategy has been prevalent in the markets since the March 2020 dip. But so far, this daily 50 SMA has been proven itself as a very huge level of support. So continue to watch this 50 SMA, especially if you guys don't have the 50 SMA. Make sure you guys turn that on your charts because it's a very crucial area that has been allowing the market to hold above the 50 SMA and has been used as a critical level of resistance when we're in a downtrend. So as the market volatility continues, continue to watch out for any type of pivot point, especially on this ascending support trend line, or simply on the 50 SMA, which can also be our pivot point back to the upside. Okay, so we have our first name here, Abbott, ABT. This name looks pretty good as on Friday, it completely ignored the market's actions and it continued to reverse higher. And so I'm loving the strength here overall, technical strength, as we just continue to consolidate. And on Friday, decide to break out above 129 here and eventually above 130. And so if we have enough juice this week and enough volume, we should be able to see all-time highs and possibly to 132. However, I'm also monitoring this ascending support trend line that we bounced off of 2 times now. All right, so we have 2 pivot points here. This is a higher low, okay? And we can also have a third higher low here. And so this is the reason why I'm being a little bit cautious here on this name, because if we hit all-time highs, again, we can see an immediate rejection and we can see that continuous selling going on as sellers come in at the all-time high rejection. And I've seen that happen multiple times. And so if we get that reaction, we can see a straight move downward until we had that third hit on the ascending support trend line. Now, obviously, that's a little bit pessimistic, but if I'm being optimistic here, we can continue to make new all-time highs as more buyers come in to step and bid the price up higher. All right, but just continue to watch out for this ascending support trend line because on a macro perspective, we can potentially make an ascending triangle here as well. All right. Okay. Now let's take a look at PayPal. All right. So PayPal is looking like a pretty good overall relatively good strength name to be looking at this week as well, just like Abbott. Because if you take a look at the 2-hour time frame and also on the daily time frame as well, it doesn't really matter on what time frame they're looking at for this name, since it is our investment choice and pick for the next couple of weeks or months, I would assume here. Well, depending on how PayPal acts. But the strength here is pretty obvious as the market has been heading lower, but PayPal has been pretty much respecting the range that it's made so far. So it's made a pretty wide 10-digit range here around 180 and 190 as the support and resistance respectively here. But every single time PayPal is pushed lower, when the market goes lower, it tends to bounce at the support level. So this is a very good sign that we are consolidating here. And just for the fact that we are slowly going downward, right? And we're making a new range here between 190 and 180. This gives me confidence that just maybe here, PayPal is capitulating to this downtrend and is ready for a nice reversal. So it's been so far reacting very nicely at the 180 support level. As on Friday, we already bounced so far on the 180 3 times here, basically, all right, of last week. So this week, I expect us to move higher as we break above 190. All right, so watch out for that critical level of 190, because if we don't break it, we will just be stuck in this consolidation range for a little bit longer. Okay. All right, so next name we have is J&J. All right, we watched this name previously, I believe back in September. Okay, and so far J&J hasn't gotten anywhere. And the reason why I'm looking at this name again is that I'm actually going to, I'm going to be designating this name as a laggard biotech COVID-19 vaccine name, because if you guys take a look at mRNA and PFE, those names have been on a very, very strong run. Even after the COVID numbers have come out, the vaccination numbers have come out, how much that they've made so far thanks to these vaccines have come out. But even with J&J doing the same thing, right, having all those numbers come out, especially J&J has been seeing great numbers thanks to the vaccine, it hasn't gone anywhere, right? Even after the recent earnings back in October as well. Okay, and so this is a name that I'm going to continue to monitor as a laggard vaccine name. And if you guys take a look at the intraday timeframes, especially the 2-hour here, we're looking at a nice descending channel here, right? And on Friday, we decide to see at the very least some buying volume coming in as the price was bidding up higher, and eventually we ended up above this descending level of resistance. Okay, so this trend line is pretty critical, because if you do not break above this descending level of resistance, we can see new lows again. So we've been making lower highs and lower lows as well as we've been consolidating in this descending channel. So on a macro scale, okay, in a macro perspective, we're looking at a nice descending channel, but in a micro perspective, we're looking at a nice downtrend. So all we need to do is to be able to break out above 159 and stay above 159, and eventually for confirmation, I want us to stay above 160 to help us have confirmation that we can stay above the 2-hour 50 SMA, which acts as a pretty heavy level of resistance. If you guys just take a look at the previous price action here, and eventually, once we're able to stay above the daily, the 2-hour 50 SMA, not the daily, we should be able to go up above 161, which is our next critical level of resistance, which also coincides with the huge next level of resistance on the 200 SMA. So this SMA resistance is pretty critical here as well. So it has. So right now the price is currently facing 3 critical levels of resistance here, including these SMAs here. So just continue to watch out for this name, especially if we are able to break up above all 3 resistances. We should see a nice explosive run up higher, and eventually we should be able to get back above 164-ish level of resistance. All right, so let's take a look at our extra stock picks for this week. So like I said last week, semiconductors have been very, very strong, right? And I've been focusing on the lagging semiconductor names, specifically AMAT and TSM. But first, let's take a look at AMAT. So AMAT had some pretty mixed results, I believe, on earnings and a mixed reaction as well. As you guys see that we gapped down and we continue to go lower, but then we bounced and we continued to go up higher, and then we went back down again, right? And so this is a lagging semiconductor name because of the fact that we're not continuing to go up higher in huge volume here. Instead, we're just consolidating between a range of 156 as resistance and around 144.50 as a new level of support. However, I do like the fact that we're using a previous level of resistance as new support so far, around 144.50. And because this is confirming and telling us bulls, especially if you're a bullish person on the AMAT here, that maybe 144.50 can be a nice pivot point here for buyers to accumulate more shares into the position so that we can start heading up higher. All right. And so if we do indeed go up higher, I expect a nice little tiny cup to form here. All right, as we start rejecting around 156 or around 158.50, which is around the all-time high numbers here. So AMAT, I would say continue to watch for this name because of the fact that we're still in a very much of an uptrend, right? We're still in a very good uptrend. We just broke out of this month-long, almost a yearly long consolidation here from mid-March or early April to late October. Okay, and so now we're just seeing that retest of that previous level of resistance that we just broke out of. So this can be a very good buy for this week around support or maybe a break of resistance around 150. Okay, so 150 is the intraday level of resistance that I've been looking out for. Next is TSM. So TSM is an even more important laggard semiconductor stock that I've been looking out for because of the fact that we've been consolidating for almost a year now, right? And so we start this consolidation around early March, and we're still in this range, all right? And so if you take a look at the weekly time frame, we have a critical level of resistance. Resistance is around 125 and 127. And then we have a critical level of support around 107.50 is around 108. So with this huge level of consolidation, right? This even reminds me of the Amazon consolidation that we saw previously in the previous CFO Swinger Watches. But this is a really, really good consolidation here. I mean, even on the daily time frame, right? This just smells like as if it's going to break up higher. And just because of the fact that, semiconductors have been seeing a chip shortage, which also means that their prices have to go up higher as well, which means more revenue, right? But obviously that also means that profit margins might also be squeezed as well, but that will depend on how each semiconductor company decides to run and how they decide to operate during this chip shortage, and to see whether or not they're going to sacrifice their profit margins or not. So TSM, right? It's a valuable company to companies like Apple, since TSM is a huge supplier to Apple for the chips. But TSM so far, right? This is a great consolidation. All we need to do is break out above the daily resistance around 122-ish to around 123. And once we're able to break above that, we need to break above 125. So there's a lot of overhead supply here that we need to break out of. About 2 weeks ago, we were about to break out above with heavy volume, but thanks to the overall market downturn and volatility, it decided to go lower and retest this daily 50 SMA, which I think was very, very good, because it looks like we're about to have a cross of the 50 SMA above the 200, which is a golden cross. And that usually means a long-term uptrend is inbound. All right. So TSM, a very, very good semiconductor lagging name to be looking out for. The next name and the last equity stock pick that I want to give you guys is gold. So this is a commodity, and gold saw some good buying volume on Friday as it decided to stop this downtrend that we've been seeing on gold for a while. So if you take a look at the 2-hour time frame, right, we're looking at another nice descending channel here. Okay, nice macro descending channel, or micro, excuse me. Right, let's do that again here. So with that general common sense statement in mind that commodities usually go up higher when equities markets fall, right? Gold can potentially be a nice hedge for your long-term investments in any equity name. Okay, so gold, I will continue to watch. As I explained before, it's in a huge macro cup and handle chart pattern, and right now we're in that. Well, we're in the process of making that handle, and so we're going to continue to see a lot of volatility in this name, if you guys consider this volatility in a commodity. But once you're able to break out above 167, hold 167, like I told you guys last week in the CFO Discord, we should be able to break up above 168 and eventually head back towards that critical level of resistance that I've been watching for months since the summer here. So once we're able to break out above 170 and 171, maybe, just maybe, we can break out above this cup and handle, well, specifically this handles resistance here, which we attempted once in early November, but we failed, right? So this just tells me that gold is not ready yet to be above 170, all right? So once we're able to break out above this broadening channel here, okay, which is basically the macro handle of the cup and handle chart pattern that I've shown you guys. And once we're able to break out above this broadening, this descending channel here on this handle, okay, we should be able to see gold go up to around 180. All right, so that's kind of my long-term price target for gold. Okay, so that's it for the equity picks, both the main picks and the extra picks. Let's take a look at my cryptocurrency pick for this week. All right, so CRO, crypto.com coin. The reason why I'm looking at this name is that this is a name that is most likely going to be prevalent for that buy the dip kind of trend, okay? Because crypto.com has been becoming very, very popular for a lot of people here. And so crypto.com coin, I still think has a lot of room to the downside. Why? Well, because we still haven't retested this daily 50 SMA. And usually when stock names or crypto names have stopped and are usually reversing from their uptrends, they tend to retest the daily 50 SMA. And the daily 50 SMA currently rests around 43 cents, right? So I'm expecting a nice dip buy around 43 cents to around 45. If not, 50 cents will be a nice double bottom dip buy, as we've already dipped around 50 cents here. So once we're able to come back down, and since we're still currently going down and expect us to go lower, and hopefully retest this daily 50 SMA here, we can see a nice chart pattern forming after that retest and bounce on the 50 SMA. And if you take a look at the weekly time frame, we're still very much overbought as well. And for the fact that we're overbought and we're reacting to the downside like this, just tells me that we can come back down and come back to those regular levels on the RSI, okay, the relative strength index. All right, so CRO will be my cryptocurrency pick for this week and potentially next week as well, depending on how CRO acts for the rest of this new week. Okay, so that's it for this week. Remember, tread lightly for this week. All right, just like I said last week. And I will see you guys all in the CFO Discord. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next week.